Hello. Oh, no music this time. I don't know what happened. Guess it's been a while since I've live streamed, so I need to make sure everything works. I should probably update my software so I could see everything before I broadcast it. Do a checkup, but whatever. Can everyone hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Send me a message on the Google chat. The live stream chat in here in YouTube. If you can't hear me, let me know of that too. And when I came in, my webcam wasn't working, so I had to put that in again as a source, and then it started working. So let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can see me. Looks like I'm appearing on YouTube here. So I'll just wait a second. Okay. So, I'm assuming I can be heard here. This is the Sri Bhaktyaloka, for those who have not tuned in before. It's a book by Bhaktivinoda Thakura, and he's explaining the different meanings to the words of the second and the third verse of Upadeshamrta, which describe the 6 things that are unfavorable for devotional service and the 6 things that are favorable for devotional service. And by reading these things and trying to understand these things, we can get a clear understanding of how we can make spiritual advancements, what are the things holding us back in our spiritual lives, so on and so forth. So, with that being said, I guess I'll start reading. And hope that everyone can hear me. Okay, so this section is called Sanga-tyaga, or giving up the association of non-devotees. Let's see, is there a difference? Because before there was the section was called Sanga. And Sanga, see if I can find it here. Great. Sanga was association with worldly-minded persons. So this always kind of confused me a little bit. So Prabhupada translates it in the Nectar of Instruction here. I have one right here. It says, text 2, associating with worldly-minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. That's what Prabhupada gave Sanga. And this is 5, abandoning the association of non-devotees. So that always seemed like the same thing to me. But when I read Sri Bhaktyaloka, some kind of distinction jumped out at me that Sanga is materialistic persons, and Sanga-tyaga is people that are not necessarily materialistic, but people that are still not devotees. Because we often equate that if you're not materialistic, in your practicing spiritual life, you're a devotee. Because after all, if you're a Mayavadi, then you're not, you're not a spiritual person. You're not really spiritual, because Mayavadi philosophy is still material. So I think that's a distinction that's made, from what I remember, and I could be completely wrong. But let's read it and see if there is a distinction made, because it's mentioned twice, basically, but it's worded differently. Now, even if that distinction isn't made here, that is a distinction that one could make, that someone might be materialistically or worldly minded, and one might not be worldly minded, but still not, trying to be a devotee. So, I don't know, I think I'm just confusing myself. I should just read. So, here's the beginning. Sanga-tyaga, giving up the association of non-devotees. In his Sri Upadeshamrta, Srila Rupa Goswami has said that one's devotion is enhanced by utsaha, nishtaya, dharya, tatak karma pravartana, Sanga-tyaga, and sadvriti, the devotee's lifestyle or propensities. Out of these items, utsaha, nishtaya, dharya, and tatak karma pravartana, have already been separately discussed in previous essays. Now I will try to discuss the meaning of the word Sanga-tyaga. There are two types of Sangha, association and attachment. Association is of two types. With non-devotees and with women. Similarly, attachment is also of two types, attachment for prejudices and attachment for assets. Those Mahatmas who wish to attain perfection in devotional service should carefully give up Sangha in the form of association and attachment. Oh, and by the way, previously, Bhaktivinoda Thakura made the statement that when it says something like this, like one should give up association with non-devotees and with women, he says that this goes for the same for women. What it means is the opposite sex. So, because the idea of duality of male and female on a materialistic bodily sexual point of view is materialistic. So, whenever it says giving up the association of women, women just think of giving up the association of men, just like that, or the idea that someone is male or female. We're trying to see everybody as souls, regardless of what body you're in. And he makes that point. He made that point earlier. I'm going to read this again. There are two types of Sangha, association and attachment. Association is of two types, with non-devotees and with women. Similarly, attachment is also of two types, attachment for prejudices and attachment for assets. Those Mahatmas who wish to attain perfection in devotional service should carefully give up Sangha in the form of association and attachment. Otherwise, this Sangha will gradually and surely ruin everything. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 2:62 and 63, quote, from attachment lust develops, and from lust anger arises. From anger complete delusion arises, and from delusion bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. Unquote. A practitioner should always remember this instruction of the Lord. If a practitioner engages in prohibited association, then gradually his attachment increases. The more this attachment increases, the more his firm faith in the supreme goal diminishes. The purport is that the living entity is spiritual. Being conditioned by Maya, and falsely proud due to ignorance, the living entity has forgotten his constitutional position. In his pure state, the living entity does not associate with Maya. Rather, he remains fully spiritual. In the spiritual world, all the association of the living entity is spiritual. Therefore, the eternal Sangha of the living entities in that state is desirable. The Sangha in the conditioned state of a living entity is polluted. That Sangha, being polluted with nescience, in the form of association with non-devotees and women, and attachment for family and assets, is unfavorable for one's advancement. And now he says for family and assets, where previously he said prejudices and assets. I think that's interesting. Spiritual Sangha of the living entities is compatible, and mundane Sangha is incompatible. To get free from this incompatible Sangha is the living entity's liberation. Now we will be considering incompatible Sangha. First we will consider the association of non-devotees. Who is a non-devotee? Those who are not subordinate to the Lord are called non-devotees. The jnanis are never subordinate to the Lord. They think that they can become one with the Lord on the strength of their knowledge. They think, quote, jnana is the topmost object. The Lord cannot keep one who attains jnana under his control. The Lord became supreme by the strength of this jnana, and I too will become supreme, unquote. Therefore, all the endeavors of the jnanis are to become independent of the Lord. The Lord's power does not act on one who achieves liberation in the form of merging with the Lord, which is attained by jnana. This is the attempt of the jnanis! Exclamation point. The jnanis and mundane scholars do not depend on the mercy of the Lord. They try to achieve everything on the strength of their knowledge and reasoning. They do not care for the Lord's mercy. Therefore, jnanis are non-devotees. Although some jnanis accept devotional service as their process of sadhana, at the time of perfection they discard it. In all their activities, there are no symptoms of eternal serving mood or subordination to the Lord. Such are the symptoms of the jnani sampradaya, or philosophical speculators. They only get a glimpse of real knowledge. That real knowledge is only a different aspect of pure devotional service. Only pure devotees, by the mercy of the Lord, can attain that. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructs Srila Sanatana Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 22 and 29, chapter 22, text 29 as follows. Quote, there are many philosophical speculators, jnanis, belonging to the Mayavad school, who consider themselves liberated and call themselves Narayana. However, their intelligence is not purified unless they engage in Krishna's devotional service. Unquote. Therefore, those who are attached to philosophical speculation are counted amongst the non-devotees. There is a fruit called mukti, and that is the supreme goal of their sadhana. It is not the purpose of their life to attain the Lord's mercy through his service. People who have faith in fruit of rituals are not devotees. Therefore, they are also non-devotees. If anyone performs karma in order to achieve the mercy of Krishna, then that karma is called bhakti. That karma which yields mundane results or mundane knowledge is adverse to the Lord. Karmis do not exclusively search for the mercy of Krishna. Although they respect Krishna, their main purpose is to attain some kind of happiness. Karma is nothing but selfish activities. Therefore, karmis are also called non-devotees. Yogis sometimes search for liberation, the fruit of jnana, and sometimes they search for vibhuti, or opulence, the fruit of karma. Hence, they too are called non-devotees. Due to lack of full surrender, worshippers of the demigods are also called non-devotees. Those who are attached to discussing dry logic are also adverse to the Lord. And what to speak of those who conclude that the Lord is only a figment of the imagination. Those who are attached to sense gratification and thus have no opportunity to remember the Lord are also counted among the non-devotees. If one associates with these non-devotees, then in a very short time one's intelligence is polluted and one's heart is overcome by their propensities. The non-devotees' propensities, you become influenced by them. If anyone desires to attain pure devotional service, then he should carefully give up the association of non-devotees. Second is the association of women. Association with women is detrimental. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, text 87, Sri Chaitanya instructs Srila Sanatana Goswami as follows. Quote, a Vaishnava should always avoid the association of ordinary people. Common people are very much materially attached, especially to women. Vaishnavas should also avoid the company of those who are not devotees of Lord Krishna. Unquote. There are two types of Vaishnavas, the householders and the renunciants. Renunciants are forbidden from speaking with any woman. By the instruction to give up the association with women, they have been forbidden from conversing with women, as stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antyalila 2:120. Quote, there are many persons with little in their possession who accept the renounced order of life like monkeys. They go here and there, engaging in sense gratification and speaking intimately with women. Unquote. Regarding Vaishnavis, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antyalila, chapter 12, verse 42 says, quote, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu received them all, just as he had in previous years. The women, however, saw the Lord from a distance. Unquote. This is the prescription in regard to householder Vaishnavas. Householders should not associate with others' wives or prostitutes. They should not indulge in any association other than with their own wives according to religious scriptures. One should give up the luxurious mentality of being excessively fond of one's wife. I wonder if that's supposed to be luxurious. One should give up luxurious, maybe it's luxurious mentality of being excessively fond of one's wife. The instructions of the scriptures regarding the smartas is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita as follows, quote, merely a house is not a home, for it is a wife who gives a home its meaning. If one lives at home with his wife, together they can fulfill all the interests of human life. Unquote. There are four kinds of human interests for people in general: religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. The prescriptions of the scriptures regarding varna and ashrama are called religion. Whatever is prohibited in the scriptures is called irreligion. A householder should follow all those prescriptions and give up all those prohibitions with the help of his wife. Whatever is achieved by following religious principles is called artha, economic development. Assets of the house, sons, daughters, cows, and animals are all artha. For enjoying those objects there is kama. Dharma, artha, and kama, all three are called trivarga, the pursuits of human life. Practicing these three vargas is the life of a conditioned living entity who is wandering in the cycle of fruitive activities. It is the duty of the smarta householder to practice trivarga with one's wife. A householder should practice trivarga with his wife day and night. The wife can accompany one while visiting holy places, until one endeavors for the supreme goal of life. What else is there except pursuing trivarga? Liberation is the living entity's fourth human interest. There are two types of liberation: relief from extreme distress and attaining spiritual happiness. Those whose religious lives are regulated by dry knowledge or impersonalism, for them relief from extreme distress is the prime goal. Those whose hearts are filled with pure knowledge ultimately search for transcendental happiness and do not remain bound in simply gaining relief from extreme distress. A Vaishnava, whether a householder or renunciant, is desirous of transcendental happiness. A householder Vaishnava always works together with his wife with the aim of achieving transcendental happiness. Although engaged in all work in this way, he never becomes luxurious. There it is again, so I guess it's not a typo. Go figure. In this way, he remains free from woman's association throughout his life. He totally gives up illicit intimate speaking with women and the mundane uxorious mood in illicit association with his wife. We should look up that word. It seems like it's probably close to luxurious. Oh, let's see here. Oh, I just had it. O-X-R-I. Uxorious. Uxorious. It is an adjective having or showing an excessive or submissive fondness for one's wife. So it's specific in that sense. Basically, he's talking about the natural human tendency to become absorbed in family affairs and adoration to your wife at the detriment of spiritual life, and women for the same thing. You can become absorbed in adoration for your husband at the sacrificing your adoration for Krishna. And basically you're doing that at the sacrifice of transcendental happiness. So somehow if you want transcendental happiness, you have to come to an agreement between each other about doing devotional service so you can have transcendental happiness in your life. So in that sense, you have to sacrifice. If you have something in your hand, you have to put it down if you're going to pick something up. And in that period of putting something down and then picking something up, there's nothing in your hand, right? So sometimes there's austerity. Sometimes it's not easy. But when one is successful, they get transcendental happiness. Then they realize, yeah, it's worth it. Totally worth it. So where am I? In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 9 through 10 and 13 and 14, Sutta Goswami has briefly explained the rules of Grihastha for a Grihastha Vaishnava as follows. See if I can do the Sanskrit, do at least one verse here. Dharmasya hyapavargasya narto urtayopakalpate nartasya dharmakantasya kamo labhaya hi smritaha. I knew the verse. I was cheating. Quote, all occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification, or material happiness. Next verse, quote, life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation. Since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth, nothing else should be the goal of one's work. Quote, O best among the twice-born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to caste divisions and orders of life is to please the personality of Godhead. Quote, therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. Unquote. The purport is that in 20 religious scriptures there are mainly instructions about Trivarga. For the welfare of the karmis, the merciful sages have composed 20 religious scriptures that are suitable for karmis. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 11:29 it is said, quote, "As long as one is not satiated by fruitive activity and has not awakened his state for devotional service by Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnuho, one has to act according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions. Otherwise you'll become an animal." I'm going to cough here. Okay. For the karmas mentioned by the Lord in this verse, Trivarga is the only prescribed occupation. Those who have become indifferent and attained jnana, for them there is no longer a need for Trivarga activities, because their desires are gone. They've realized, to be absorbed in working for material results is it's such a mixed bag. The happiness is kind of there, the stress is definitely there, and they're kind of like, okay, maybe by being aware of these things all the time, I can avoid it. They give up those activities and become eligible for sannyas with dry knowledge. Those who are faithful in hearing the topics of the Lord after receiving His mercy on the strength of their accumulated pious activities from many lifetimes are no longer attached to karma. They are called Vaishnavas. Among them, those who are grihastas enjoy whatever artha they obtain while practicing dharma for the purpose of liberation, not for the purpose of sense gratification. Rather, this artha helps them purely maintain their lives in the favorable cultivation of Krishna consciousness with the purpose of understanding the absolute truth. And this, the difference between karma and spiritual activities can be seen. Therefore, to attain the mercy of the Lord, a Grihasta Vaishnava should accept the divisions of Varnashram, and along with his wife practice dharma, religion, artha, economic development, kama, sense gratification, and moksha, liberation, in order to maintain his life. So the sense gratification, I just want to say, kama, he mentioned sons, daughters, family, land, things like that. It's sense gratification to have your children and enjoy them. And here he's saying this: there's nothing wrong with that. They're sweet talking, or they're fun games, or just doing things with your family, and that. But there are certain things that are considered illicit activities, and by doing those things, then that derails your spiritual consciousness. So it's what's being said here is that one should practice this Trivarga, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and moksha ultimately, which is the final one, in order to maintain his life. So whatever is necessary to maintain the life, but not to, the point is to seek transcendental happiness. And if sense gratification comes by its own accord, then so it does. That's the nice thing about Grihastha life, is you can't help but have a nice time with family and things like with your family and your land and whatever you gather by artha. And still it can be used in Krishna's service. So it's a very natural way to develop, but one needs to understand also what is dharma, what is religious, and as to not contaminate the consciousness. So whenever his house becomes unfavorable for this purpose, he should give it up out of disgust. Thus, by properly performing the activities of Trivarga, the Grihastha Vaishnava's character becomes pure. With such pure characteristics, he should hear, chant, and remember the names, forms, and qualities, and pastimes of the Lord with full surrender. The wife should also always endeavor for spiritual perfection, with the help of subordinate women, such as her sister and daughter. There's no illicit conduct in this, so there will not be any association with women. Therefore, whether one is a householder or renunciate, all practitioners should totally give up the association with women. The devotees should carefully give up the above mentioned Sangha in the form of association. Let us now consider Sangha in the form of attachment. Attachments are of two kinds: attachment for prejudices and attachments for assets. First, I will discuss the attachment for prejudices. There are two types of prejudices: ancient and current. The conditioned living entity has been performing fruitive activities and endeavoring for knowledge since time immemorial, and the prejudices that developed in his subtle body as a result are called ancient prejudices. That's far out. Those prejudices are known as one's nature. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 5.14, quote, "The embodied spirit, master of the city of his bodies, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature." Unquote. Srila Baladeva Vidyabhushana comments on this, quote, "The primordial material desire that is active since time immemorial is called one's nature. Due to such a desire, the living entity is supplied with material bodies and other paraphernalia. False identification with the bodies causes one to act and causes others to act, although this is not the pure soul's real constitution or nature." Unquote. Again from Bhagavad Gita 1860, quote, "Under illusion you are now declining to act according to my direction, but, compelled by the work born of your own nature, you will act all the same, O son of Kunti." Unquote. Regarding the bondage of prejudice of knowledge, the Bhagavad Gita 14.6 says, quote, "O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge." Unquote. Srila Baladeva Vidyabhushana comments, quote, "I am wise, I am happy. By this pride, the living entity is bound by goodness." Unquote. People's association with karma and jnana is the result of attachment born from the prejudices of one's nature that are produced from past karma and jnana. In the previous verse, the Mayavadi's bondage of jnana is displayed. Regarding the karmis, the Bhagavad Gita 3.26 says, quote, "So as not to disrupt the minds of the ignorant men, attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness." Unquote. For ancient prejudices, one develops association with karma and jnana. Association with these ancient prejudices is inevitable. Despite all attempts up to suicide, one cannot give up one's prejudices. The prejudices or attachments for good and bad attained in this life due to association are called modern prejudices. Present life. Everyone in the world is under the control of these two kinds of prejudices. When a living entity is not bound by Maya, then by nature he is a servant of Krishna. Being bound by Maya, a living entity cannot give up ancient and modern wicked prejudices. At that time, ancient wicked prejudices become his second nature. Only Sadhu-sanga can reform the attachment to prejudices. Sadhu-sanga is the only remedy for this disease. Unless one reforms his attachment to prejudices, one cannot attain perfection in devotional service by any means, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3.23, 3.23.55. Quote, "Association for sense gratification is certainly the path of bondage, but the same type of association performed with a saintly person leads to the path of liberation, even if performed without knowledge." So if you do what the saintly people are doing, even if you don't know what they're doing, then you'll make progress towards liberation. Unquote. Okay. Due to association with materialistic people, the living entity is bound in the cycle of birth and death. Even if one unknowingly associates with the materialist, the result must come. And if one unknowingly associates with the real sadhu, he attains freedom from material association. Again, in Srimad Bhagavatam 11:12, 1-2, it says, quote, "The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, 'My dear Uddhava, by association with my pure devotees, one can destroy one's attachment for all objects and material sense gratification. Such purifying association brings me under the control of my devotee. One may perform the Ashtanga Yoga system, engage in philosophical analysis of the elements of material nature, practice nonviolence and other ordinary principles of piety, chant the Vedas, perform penances, take to the renounced order of life, execute sacrificial performances, and dig wells, plant trees, and perform other public welfare activities, give in charity, carry out severe vows, worship the demigods, chant confidential mantras, visit holy places, or accept major and minor disciplinary injunctions. But even by performing such activities, one does not bring me under his control." Unquote. Association with prejudices is very dangerous. By affectionately associating with pure devotees of the Lord, one's association with prejudices in the form of karma and jnana is destroyed. Due to this association with prejudices, a living entity's propensity for ignorance and passion becomes stronger. Whatever propensities for goodness, passion, and ignorance are seen in people's eating, sleeping, and sensual activities are all due to association with prejudices. Karmis and jnanis disrespect Vaishnavas only due to this attachment for prejudices. Until the attachment to prejudices is destroyed, then 10 offenses in chanting will not be uprooted. Offenses at the feet of sadhus is due to being proud of one's karma and jnana. The offense in chanting in the form of blaspheming devotees enters the heart of the non-devotee and takes up residence there. Worldly attachment is contrary to acceptance of Krishna's undisputed supremacy. And it therefore does not allow the unfortunate living entity to fully surrender to the Lord. Thus disobeying the spiritual master, blaspheming the Vedic literatures, interpreting the holy name, considering the chanting of the holy names as equal to the pious activities offered in the Vedas, committing sinful activities while pretending to chant the holy name, aversion due to conceptions of I and my, selling the holy names to unfit persons. All these offenses against the holy names continue. In such a condition, how can one be benefited? Therefore it is said, one should never associate with materialistic persons, for by doing so, all one's assets are lost and he falls from his position. Okay, so just so you know, in the Janasanga section, what he gets into there, and I guess this is maybe the distinction. I was trying to explain some kind of distinction before, but that's not the distinction that Bhaktivinoda Thakura is making here. He talks about what does it mean to associate with worldly-minded persons. So, in your ordinary dealings as grihastas, if you're a grihasta, you have to interact with people who are not devotees. So he gets into the details of when are you actually associating with them, what kind of behavior would cause you to take on their qualities. And so to hear that whole explanation, the whole detailed thing, as he covers a lot of different things. There's another video that we made a while back, and you can see it on my channel. But in there, he talks about what is it mean to associate with worldly-minded people and how to not do it. That's pretty helpful. So it has been seen that many fortunate souls have given up attachment for prejudices by the association of pure Vaishnavas. From the scriptures, it is well known that the association of Sri Narada Muni, the hunter Magrari, and Ratnakara Valmiki attained auspiciousness. The foremost instruction of Sri Ramanujacharya is this, quote, "If you cannot purify yourself by any endeavor whatsoever, then just go sit with the Vaishnavas and you will achieve all auspiciousness," unquote. Jai. By observing the pure characteristics of a devotee, in a very short time a person's mind is changed. His attachment for sense enjoyment decreases, and the seedling of bhakti sprouts in the heart. One even gradually develops a taste for the Vaishnava's food and behavior. We have seen how associating with Vaishnavas, people have given up many anarthas: tastes for associating with women, thirst for wealth, desire for sense enjoyment and liberation, inclination for karma and jnana, eating meat and fish, drinking wine, smoking tobacco, and the desire to chew pan. By observing a Vaishnava's quality of not uselessly wasting time, many people have easily given up anarthas such as laziness, oversleeping, useless talk, urge of speech, etc. We have also seen that by associating with Vaishnavas for some time, someone's cheating propensity and desire for fame have been destroyed. We have seen with our own eyes that by associating with Vaishnavas with a little affection, all their associations, such as attachment for prejudices, has been vanquished. Those who are attached to winning fights, those who are expert at attaining dominion, those who are eager to accumulate great wealth, all such types of people have attained devotional service by being purified in the association of Vaishnavas. Even the hearts of persons who think, quote, "I will defeat the world by my arguments and attain supremacy," unquote, have been purified. Without the association of Vaishnavas, there is no alternative for rectifying the attachment for prejudices. One should carefully give up attachment for material assets. People in general have spontaneous attachment for house, household paraphernalia, clothes, ornaments, wealth, wife and children's health, their own health, eatables, trees, and animals. Some people are so addicted to smoking, chewing pan, eating fish and meat, and drinking alcohol that their practice of spiritual life is obstructed. That's putting it lightly. Many people do not respect the Lord's remnants out of great attachment to eating things like fish. People of the... Lost my spot. Okay. Because of the desire to constantly smoke, many people study of devotional scriptures, relish for hearing and chanting, and remaining long in temples is obstructed. Attachment for these things is averse to the constant practice of devotional service. I wonder if he would throw in, like, watching TV, being on the internet. Probably would. Because let's try it. Because of people's desire to constantly watch TV, because of the desire to constantly watch movies, or pay attention to the news cycle, many people study of devotional scriptures, relish for hearing and chanting, and remaining long in temples is obstructed. Yeah, naturally. You're not going to have the patience. You're not going to have the patience until to sit and read, if you're constantly, used to being stimulated here and get the brain candy going. Mode of goodness stuff is not going to be interesting to you. That's just how it goes. So attachment for these things is adverse to the constant practice of devotional service. If one does not carefully give up these things, then he cannot get happiness from his devotional service. Attachment for these things is easily destroyed by the association of devotees. Still, one should try to destroy these petty attachments by fully engaging in devotional service. By observing vows approved in devotional service, those attachments are vanquished. And this last point, I think, is probably the most important point. One should try to destroy these petty attachments by fully engaging in devotional service. This is, I think, in my experience, that this is something that is so important to the spreading of Krishna consciousness. We need to have centers. We need to have retreats. We need to have stuff, where people, devotees, can just get plucked out of this materialistic society and just focus on doing devotional service, as like hearing and chanting and worshipping the deity and just becoming totally absorbed in the culture. And that way, it'll be very easy for someone to get a taste for cheering and chanting. Um, Especially if we want to make more devotees, we have to provide a facility, I think, where someone can check out, basically, of this whole terrible mundane paradigm so they can absorb in Krishna consciousness for like 4 months at a time. If someone doesn't have any attachments, doesn't have any responsibilities, and there's lots of people like that, students mostly, but to give them a good head start like that, that could change a lot of hearts and minds. But they really, really need that full engagement to get rid of these prejudices. It's true. Wow. If people have prejudices, then when you try to explain certain things about Krishna consciousness or certain things about morality, just basic moral life that leads to liberation, they'll just reject it because they have these certain prejudices. But if you get purified and you taste the chanting of the holy names, you get blissfulness from understanding some points in the scripture, or you get some mercy. Basically, you get the mercy of the Lord by doing the devotional service because you're so burned out on everything else and you're fully engaged. Then all your prejudices just kind of vanish. You're just like, oh, whatever that was, I want that. I want more of that. So that I think that's a point that as a society we've kind of lost, and think that we're gonna spread Krishna consciousness without we're going to spread Krishna consciousness by catering to the current prejudices that people have, and that's not going to work according to Bhaktivinoda Thakura, because the spiritual world is very different than the material world. And at any rate, everybody's ideas, unless they're devotees, are based off of false ego. And if the whole thing about Krishna consciousness is to give up false ego, then good luck convincing anybody to be serious about Krishna consciousness if they, can't really seriously, if they can't do much to get Krishna's mercy. You can only get Krishna's mercy if you favorably serve him, and a lot. Well, even if you do it once, but if you do it right, then yeah, he'll be merciful. But sometimes, and most oftenly, that takes time. Anyway, that's the point here. One should try to destroy these petty attachments by fully engaging in devotional service. And obviously, that's what Prabhupada established when he started preaching, and it was highly, highly successful. At least for the time being, it was. Okay. A couple more pages. Here we go. I'll keep reading. By properly observing Hari Vasara, Ekadashi, and appearance days of the Lord, those attachments are vanquished. The rules of such vows are provisions for diminishing one's attachments. There are prescriptions for practicing devotional service while giving up all types of enjoyment on those days. There are two types of eatables, those which one sustains one's life and those which gratify the senses. Healthy food and comfort food? Eating grains and drinking are life-sustaining. Fish, meat, pan, intoxicants, and smoking are all for gratifying the senses. Okay, not exactly what I said. Excuse me. On days of vows, unless one totally gives up sense-gratifying items, it is not a vow. As far as possible, life-sustaining items should also be given up. According to the prescribed needs of one's bodily condition, one must try as far as possible to reduce the acceptance of life-sustaining eatables. There's no prescription for acceptance of sense-gratifying items. The only prescription is to reject them. One of the limbs of a vrata is to diminish the devotee's propensity for enjoyment. If one thinks, quote, today somehow or other I will renounce, but tomorrow I will enjoy profusely, unquote, then the purpose of the vow will not be successful. The reason is that the vows have been prescribed to give up the association of such items by gradual practice. Vows are usually for 3 days. First by practicing vows for 3 days, then by practicing for 1 month, then by practicing for 4 months, chaturmasya. In this way, gradually, one should completely uproot attachment for sense-gratifying items and leave them forever. For those who cannot remember the statements of Bhagavad Gita,
quote, he quickly becomes righteous, unquote. In regard to the observance of vows, their renunciation is temporary, like the bathing of an elephant. You can see the point here is the gradual purification of the consciousness. It's not that we just believe that, oh, I do this service, I do this vow, it's and then and then and then I'm good, right? I'm good, and then I can go back to whatever. There should be. It's all about. Does one feel that they're making solid progressive advancement? Do they see themselves becoming progressively more advanced? That's the difference between like having a religion where you say, well, I do all these good things and then when I die I get the result, and a spirituality that says you're putting yourself through a process and you'll feel the results as you progress. And according to where you get, how much advancement you make in this life, that is your results. Your result is the purification of your mind, not that okay, I've only I've done these specific religious things throughout my life, and I've done all these unreligious stuff, but because I've done all this religious stuff, then I'm good. No, it's really about how you've cleaned your consciousness. If the water is dirty and you take the dirt out, and that was hard work, it took a few days, and then you're like, anyway, throw the dirt back in. That's what we're talking about, not because God saw you. Well, you took the dirt, God saw that you took the dirt out for 3 days and you had clean water for 3 days, and then he goes, okay, he's good, let him into the spiritual world. It's like, no, you have contaminated consciousness, which means you don't want to be in the spiritual world, so you won't go there because you don't want to go there. That's what this is all about cultivating what you want to do. And Krishna will just facilitate whatever you want to do. He's not, you're just, in other words, we just cheat ourselves. We can't cheat Krishna. Which is not exactly the point I wanted to make, but the point I wanted to make is that it's practical, and it's all about how we develop ourselves individually. See you, Nathan. Thanks for tuning in. Haribo. So for those who desire to attain pure devotional service, the association of non-devotees and women is meant to be given up. It is extremely necessary for them to associate with sadhus in order to give up the attachment for prejudices. They must... Wait a minute. Okay, sorry. I thought maybe I jumped ahead. They must follow all vows meant for Vaishnavas in order to give up the attachment for material objects. One should not be negligent in these practices. One should follow these instructions with great care and respect. If one does not follow carefully, then cheating in the form of duplicity renders the whole endeavor useless, which is basically what I just said. For those who do not have respect in this regard, attaining devotion to Sri Hari becomes very rare, even after hearing for many births. What is association and giving up association? Many people have doubts about this. Doubts may be there, because if just by coming close to a materialist, a material object is considered association with them, then there is no way to give up this association. Oh, he's going to talk about this again. Okay. As long as the material body is there, how can one give up the proximity of these things? How can a Grihasta Vaishnava give up his family members? One cannot give up the association of deceitful persons, even if they are renunciants. One will have to come across materialists in one's life, whether one is a Grihasta or a renunciant. Therefore the limit for giving up the association of materialists is prescribed in Upadeshamrta as follows. Quote, offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad, and offering prasad are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. Unquote. O sadhakas! Exclamation point. One must accept proximity with both bad and good people as one passes his life. This equally applies to householders and renunciants. Proximity must be there. Nevertheless, one should not engage in bad association. Giving in charity, accepting charity, revealing one's mind, hearing one's mind, accepting foods, In giving foods, if done with love, these are called Sanga, or association. Giving some foodstuffs to a hungry person and accepting some charity from a pious man is done out of duty, not out of love. Even if they are materialists, this type of engagement is not considered association. But if they are pure devotees, then such activities are performed out of love. When acts are performed out of love, then it is association. Therefore, giving charity to pure Vaishnavas and accepting items or wealth from them becomes satsanga. Giving charity to a materialist or accepting charity from one is, if done out of love, becomes asatsanga. When a materialist approaches you, whatever is required to be done should be done only out of duty. One should not speak confidentially with a materialist. Generally, there is some love involved in confidential speaking, therefore it is association. While meeting a materialistic friend, one should speak only what is extremely necessary. At that time, it is better not to exhibit heartfelt love. But if that friend is a proper Vaishnava, then one should accept his association by speaking to him with love. This type of behavior with relatives and friends creates no hostility. There is no association in ordinary talk. One should behave with ordinary people as one externally behaves with a stranger while buying something in the market. The same dealings with the pure devotee of the Lord should be done out of love. I get a feeling that the Orthodox Jewish community has the same kind of attitude. If one is obliged to feed hungry people, needy people, and teachers, he should do so as a host dutifully cares for his guests. There is no need to exhibit love. Care for them, but not out of love. One should feed pure Vaishnavas with love, and when required to accept remnants given by them with love, and when required, accept the remnants given by them with love. If one can behave in this way while giving in charity, accepting charity, speaking confidentially, hearing confidentially, feeding and accepting food with one's wife, children, servants, maidservants, strangers, and whoever else one meets, there will no unholy. This is weird. There will no unholy association. There is no unholy association. Only good association. There is no hope of achieving devotion to Krishna until one gives up unholy association in this way. A renunciant Vaishnava should accept whatever alms he receives by madhukari, or begging, at the house of an honest householder with the above-mentioned consideration. He should always remember the difference between gross begging and madhukari. A grihastha Vaishnava should accept prasad, grains and drinks, in the house of another grihastha who has pure character. One should always be cautious about taking prasad in the house of a non-devotee and one with bad character. There is no need to speak further about this. Due to their pious activities, those who have developed faith in devotional service have a little intelligence by the mercy of Krishna. Due to that intelligence, they can easily understand the essence of the Acharya's instructions. Therefore, only a few words are needed to instruct them. Those who have no pious credits have no faith. Even if they are given volumes of instructions, they will not understand a thing. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami has given only a few words of instruction in Upadeshamrta. That's an interesting statement, isn't it? It makes sense, though. Like, and so, if anyone's ever tried to explain Krishna consciousness to somebody, um, some people go, oh, that makes sense. I like that. And then and some people you say the same stuff and you say, oh, and it just goes right over their head. They don't get it. They don't like it or whatever it is. And some people you just say a few things and they get it and then they go to engage in Krishna's service. That's really interesting. Um, So yeah, so he covers what is association at the end of it, and it means to do things out of love. Um, so whenever we come across devotees, we should be heartfelt in engaging in serving them or association. Um, can I read what again? There's such a delay. It's kind of tough. the very last section was that basically, those who are devotees, by Krishna's mercy, they have some intelligence. And so you only need to give a little instruction to them, because you don't need to say a lot of words. Because by a lot of words, by just a few words, because of Krishna's mercy, they understand. I'll read. I can read it. I can read it. So, Krishna's mercy the devotee has. So, knowing that, I'll read this. So, due to that intelligence, they can easily understand the essence of the Acharya's instructions. Therefore, only a few words are needed to instruct them. Those who have no pious credits have no faith. Even if they are given volumes of instructions, they will not understand a thing. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami has given only a few words of instruction in his Sri Upadeshamrta. So, that's interesting, right? I mean, be honest, be genuine, chant and pray for Krishna's mercy. If you are getting transcendental blissfulness, or if you're getting some kind of mercy from Krishna by trying to please the spiritual master and following the instructions, then your own intelligence is there to understand the essence of something. When you'll know, what is the essence of the Acharya's instructions. Perhaps sometimes we ask questions because we just don't. We know what the answer is, but we just wish the answer wasn't that. And that's due to our prejudices, and therefore we want to hear a devotee explain it, so it uproots our prejudices for things. It's all very interesting, but our advancement in devotional service is based off of our taking association with Krishna and his energies, his internal energies, the devotees, and their words, their service, doing service ourselves, chanting. By taking association with Krishna, that's how we get Krishna's mercy. And automatically by doing that, we're not associating with anything material or materialists. And then in dealing with materialists, we simply have to do it out of duty. Do everything out of duty. Except when you come to Krishna and his devotees, things should be done with love. And we all know the difference, when you kind of do something in a loving way, hoping someone will reciprocate, and they do, you feel good. You feel like there's trust built. You open up to somebody and you tell them what's really going on within your heart, and if there's some difficulty or whatever it is, and you hope that they reciprocate. That's when you're doing something out of love, and that kind of faith should really only be applied to devotees, because devotees are the only ones that will direct you towards spiritual life, direct you towards Krishna. So to really take these instructions seriously, one obviously has to have a either profound understanding of devotional service or profound faith in devotional service to take these fully seriously, and therefore we have to associate with devotees. We have to associate with devotees. And that's why we have programs, because then at the programs, the point of the programs is already known. We're coming together to talk and hear about Krishna and understand Krishna and to do service for Krishna. That's what all the programs are all about, and that's what devotee association is about. Not being pure devotees, we sometimes do devotional service and we sometimes forget about Krishna and don't do devotional service, and so therefore we have regulated times of day where we do devotional service so we can really get a full dose. And those times where we're not doing devotional service, we might be in the association of people that believe Krishna is God but don't always subserviate themselves to Krishna at those times, then that's not devotee association. Because devotees, real devotees are always engaged in devotional service. They're all engaged in Krishna's service. So devotee association means to be engaged in Krishna's service with love, and to assist the devotees who are engaged in Krishna service with love, to reveal our mind, all those things there in Krishna service. So thanks for listening. Next time, and we won't miss it, is Sadhu-vritti, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. That's certainly easier said than done. But it's the last section of this book. It's quite long. It's a lot of quotes. But we'll be back here on, what is it? We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll be doing that, reading that section of Bhaktyaloka. If anybody wants to come over, I'd like to hear what people have to say, any realizations about this. I've spoken a lot and everyone's been listening to me. If people want to come over to the Discord, voice server, and share their realizations, there's the link. I just posted it there. I hope at least Sudevi and Krishna Kumari will be able to join, and just like to hear people's realizations, and like to have people share with us, so we can all get some association. So thank you very much, and look forward to the next reading. This book is great. It covers so many great things. So please join us in Discord, and we'll see everyone next time. Hare Krishna.